Good morning, everyone. It's Yana Martins here, and our 13th episode of Reboot Your Tech Mind, a place for creating positive habits. So we're getting together every Tuesday morning, 7:45 a.m. for quick practical tips to kickstart your day in the tech world. So in each episode, we focus on one exercise from a range of topics, including goal setting, stress management, productivity hacks, positive affirmation, mindfulness, breathing, and so on, where you aim to reduce your stress level, stay motivated, or enhance productivity. We got you covered here. So let's reboot together and create healthy habits. So it's a really quick stream, under 15 minutes. If you have a chance, please still introduce yourselves in the comments, and then feel free to ask questions if you don't have time to answer them live. We can always take them offline. So in this episode, Sue shares straightforward tips on mastering your to-do list. Sue will explain how to create a clear and focused list, prioritize tasks effectively, and ensure they got completed. So by the end, you will know exactly how to tackle your to-do list effectively. So without any further delays, passing on to Sue to introduce herself and get started. Let's do it, please.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thank you, Yana. Lovely to be here. And so I'm Sue Glasser. I'm a productivity and success coach and life coach and a speaker. And my purpose in life is to help people to make the most of their 24 hours. And that's by being more productive, more effective, and most importantly, living their best life and finding that kind of work-life harmony. And that's what I do. And I do that through coaching as well as speaking and running workshops in corporates and wherever you need me. So
Perfect.
That's what I do. So today we're going to talk about turning your to-do list into a done list, because everybody, we know we have all these tasks every day, but we don't always get through them. And your day is actually made up of two things only. It's either meetings or tasks. You're either in a meeting, finding more tasks is basically that's what meeting is all about, right? Or otherwise we've got tasks where we actually got to do the things that we need to do, which is our job, right? And so we want to find I always want to find ways to help you to just make it as simple as possible and ensure that we actually get these things done. Now, I'll ask you this question, Yana, and everybody else who's listening now or going to be listening later, is do you keep your to-do list in your head?
No, I have it right here,
Beautiful.
Good. I have a multiple piece of paper, but I have one right in front of me every time with the things that I really need to get done today.
I love that. Okay, I love that. Because in fact, we can't keep it in our head. And David Allen from Getting Things Done, he's pretty well-known guru on productivity. And his saying is this: your head is for having thoughts and not for holding on to them, right? We need to take these thoughts that we have in our head and put them down on paper. Get them out of your head. Why? Because then we've got room for other things. Because if you think about it, if you do keep your list in your head, then all you're doing all day long is trying to remember what you need to do. And there's no room for dreaming. There's no room for anything else, right? Because you're so full in your head, right? And it's also easy to forget things, especially the little things, if you keep it in your head. So the first and most important thing I would say is that, get the stuff out of your head and onto paper, because already that's going to make you feel less stressed trying to remember everything all the time. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So let's talk about my tips on how to make sure that you get your to-do list done. Now, a lot of people will say to me, when should I write the list? When should I write down my task list? And my recommendation always is to do it the day before or the night before, not on the day of. Because if you start doing it in the morning, you're already behind, right? Because now you're starting to say, okay, what do I need to do today? So ideally, we want to do it the day before. So kind of before you leave the office, write down the things that you need to do. But I also always have a pen and paper next to my bed, because I like to do just before I go to sleep, or, just before I read, because I read before I go to sleep. Before I do my reading, I'll write down some of the things that I've got to do tomorrow. Now, why? Because it stops that 3 a.m. wake-up call. We all know that call, right? You wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, oh, I forgot to do that. Or thinking of a brilliant idea, or, something that you want to, that you've got to do, or that you forgot to do. And you wake up in the middle of the night, right? So it's better to get that out of your head and dump it in the, just before you go to sleep. you're going to have a better night. So recommendation from a time point of view is then to do it the day before. So let's get into my top 5. So number 1 is to do a master list, one list that has all the different areas of your life. It's not necessary to have different pieces of paper or different areas, different notebooks or to-do lists for all the different areas of your life. One place to put everything. It's going to make your life a lot easier. So that's number 1. The next thing is to do a brain dump. So you literally put everything in your head down on paper. Don't prioritize at that stage, because if you start to think about what I have to do that's most important, you'll end up forgetting the little things. Now, remember I said this is a list for everything. So little things could even be things like making a doctor's appointment. It might just fall off the list because you're so busy thinking about all the other stuff that has to go on. So whatever you think of, as you think of it, just put it down. Put all of the things down on the list. Brain dump. Right. So now everything's down on the list. The next thing is, one of my favorite is color coding. Now, color coding is an organized person's best friend, because if you color code the areas that you have on your calendar, there's a couple of reasons why it's a good thing to do. Right. The first one is that it's obviously much clearer to you what's going on because you can see each area has a color. It's not just a whole thing of, black writing, which doesn't stand out, and it's harder to work out what you need to do, right? So that's the first thing. And just having that idea of colors it actually shows you where your priorities lie. So, if you've got one color, like I've got different colors, because I have a few different areas in my life, right? So I have Paper Clipper, Tony Robbins coach. Then I've got all my personal stuff, right? You've got family, there's all these different areas. Now, you need to have, by the way, that one color for yourself. Mine's pink. Yeah. Make sure that your color's in there. And if there's no pink, none of your color, then something's going on, right? Yes. Okay. Now you're with me.
One here.
Pink is the color, right? Because then you're realizing that you're not prioritizing yourself. And if we want to have some work-life harmony, I always like to call it harmony, because balance is too hard, right? So we want to have a harmony in our lives. We need to have time for ourselves. So make sure you've got your color in there. So it's very helpful. It's not absolutely necessary color coding, but I can tell you that it does make a difference in understanding what's going on in your diary. And then, only then, do we start to prioritize. Because now we've got our full list and we've color coded, and now we can decide what needs to be done when. And I'm going to share with you my 4 Ds after I've shared these 5 tips with you, so that you'll know how to prioritize. So I'll give you a way to do that. So I'll do that soon. Okay, so now when we've prioritized, the next and most important thing is that we need to schedule your tasks. Okay, because if it gets scheduled, it gets done. Okay, there's much more chance of something getting done if we put it in our diary. And whenever will become never. So, when we say, whenever I get time, I'm going to do that. Whenever I can, I'm going to do that. Whenever I've got time, I'm going to start gym. Whenever I've got time, I'm going to start that project. I'm going to start my passion. Never happens, right? So that's why we've always got to make sure that we schedule things and put them in our diary. Now, from your prioritized list, we also need to know how long each task is going to take, right? Because if you're going to schedule in your diary, you need to know how much time you have to schedule. Makes sense, right? But if, for example, you want to start, you need to do a project and it's, going to take you half a day, unfortunately, none of us have, half a day lying around to do one job. It's just not a possibility, right? We don't have half a day. So we want to make sure we break it down. And I always say this, every big job is actually just a lot of little jobs put together, right? So if you break that big job down and say, okay, if this is going to take me 5 hours, well, I'm going to, fit in a half an hour, in the week, 3 hours, etc. So you want to make sure that you've broken it down and it's actually something that's doable and achievable. Because, of course, when we think of a whole day's job or half a day's job, we feel overwhelmed. And what do we end up doing, Jana, if we're overwhelmed?
Nothing. Procrastinating.
Exactly. We procrastinate. And that's a whole nother session I can do on with you guys on procrastination and perfectionism, but we'll leave that for another time. But yes, because when it's too big and then we just say, well, it's too hard, and we end up putting it off. And then it becomes urgent, which is really what we don't want. Okay, so now we know how long it's going to take, and we must allocate it into your diary. Okay. And people say to me, but my calendar is just my calendar. It's my diary, a timekeeper, okay, a place where we put appointments. But I'm saying, no, we don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you use your calendar as an action plan. It's a place where you plan your time to get your tasks done. Because remember, if they're not in your diary, there's a good chance they won't get done at all. Right? So we want to make sure that we're putting those into our diary.
Yeah, and when you put in the calendar, you kind of have at least some sort of feeling that you know what's going on in your day, and you can at least say that I definitely can finish this task, but I can't finish all of them. So once you start putting in the calendar, you start realizing that I don't have 32 hours today to do it all.
That's true. You're right. But the point is that if it's in your calendar, at least you know what's going on in your day, and you haven't just left things to whenever, and often that won't happen. And of course, we often end up then just doing the things that are easy on our list, because we can tick them all off. Everybody loves to tick, 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 right? So it's like, do all the easy things. Look at me. I've done like 10 things today. And when you go back to the list, all the things that needed to be done today weren't done because they were, the bigger or more difficult jobs. So we want to make sure that we get the stuff done. And that's why the prioritizing is so important, so that we can make sure that it's done in order, right? And talking about priorities, I'll share my 4Ds with you now. And so I think it's understanding this, because most people say, okay, well, I've got my list. Like, what do I do first? Where do I start? Well, it's pretty obvious, okay? The first D is do, which is actually the things you need to do today, okay? The things that must be done today. And we all know there's certain things we have to get done on that specific day, right? Those have like a legitimate deadline for today, and it needs to get done. So that's the most important, that's on your list for today, okay? The do's. The second one is to delegate, okay? Because what happens is, if we've got this long list of things that we need to do, and we kind of do this thing, I like to call it self-overwhelm. Like, we overwhelm ourselves by having all of these things on the list for today, when in fact, they don't all have to be done today. So we have this list. Then at the end of the day, we look at our list, and we've only ticked off, say, 4 or 5 things. And we say, oh, I never finished my list. I mean, I can never get through my list. There's too much stuff going on. I'm too busy. But actually, it's not always true. It's just that the stuff on your list that you've got there, you think you needed to do today, but you didn't. Yeah, makes sense, right? So remember, it's really, the doing is the most important thing. That's for today. The second one is delegate. Okay, so the question is, who can help me with this task? Who can help me? Because you know what? You don't have to do it all by yourself. We all think that we've got to do everything on our own, but it's okay to ask for help, right? And the interesting thing about leveraging people or asking or delegating is often they've got better skills or can do something faster than you. So rather use that and get the benefit of that. So even though you know it has to be done, it doesn't always have to be done by you. It could be done by somebody else, right? It makes sense, right? Beautiful. Then we've got delay. And delay is, what task can I delay? Because these are the tasks that you have on your list, and every single day you're moving them across. And you say, oh, I'm going to do that tomorrow. I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do that tomorrow. Don't do that, because you know what? Why don't you just choose a time in the future and allocate it into your diary? Schedule a time to do that task, and then you don't have to think about that task until it comes up in your diary. So it's no longer taking headspace or space on your list, right? And then the last one is to delete, because some things are just no longer necessary. They've become irrelevant, but they're still sitting on your list. And I'm giving you permission, okay? It's okay to cross it off and let it go, because those are taking up space and you don't need those, right? So that's it. So if we do the things we need to do on the day, we delegate to get people to help us, we move things into our calendar that don't need to be done today, and we delete things that are no longer necessary. And we use those other 5 tips, you're going to get your to-do list, and it'll be turned into a ta-da list because it'll be all done.
Perfect, Sue. I totally agree about that, taking space in mind. So sometimes just remembering what you to do, just taking so much energy. So I always try to have a piece of paper and write down as soon as a new email comes, and I don't have to do it right now. I'll just write it down to remember that this is important to do today, just not to hold it in my head. And yeah, that delay thing as well, instead of just rewriting that thing every week, every day. Just put it somewhere. Put it somewhere in a year's time. Took me 2 years to paint my wall. I was just keep
every day paint.
And if keep delaying because it was a big task. I'm like, I need half a day to paint my wall, and just like keep delaying. Just sort of schedule it straight away for like 2 years time.
Exactly that. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sue, for time. Thank you, everyone who was watching us live. I see you've been liking this video, so please make sure if you haven't liked this video, do it and share with those who need to hear this. And of course, if you enjoying the discussion, it's encouraging me to keep going and keep bringing various experts from my network to share their knowledge. So we are meeting every Tuesday morning at 7:45 p.m. And also remember, I have a Wednesday 5:30 p.m. discussion as well. And you can always go and check replays. Even last week, we were talking about morning journaling, and the same concept. If you have so many things in your head, just brain dump it. Just get it out of your head so you're not thinking about it. So that's sort of brain dump concept coming back again today. So so I really recommend to watch the previous episode with Wendy to take it further. So thank you so much, Sue. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing knowledge. And we'll see everyone next Tuesday.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.